Woody Allen said about himself, "I'm a pessimistic person and a moderate depressive. I'm a compulsive worker. What I really like to do best is whatever I'm not doing at the moment."
City Lights at the Academy Awards takes a look at the movie Annie Hall, nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Actress, and visits with comedy writer-creator Woody Allen.
Woody Allen is with us. We've just been looking at a scene from Annie Hall in which you killed a spider, which you described was the size of a Buick. It's easy to speak post facto to you now, but I wonder about the beginnings of your career and why, when you were doing so well as a writer, and I think your manager, Jack Rawlins, and his partner, Charles Joffe, said that there you were making a few $1,000s a week writing, and suddenly you showed up in a club called the Duplex off Sheridan Square, and you were described as a real flop, and yet you kept on going. What propelled you then to get up and perform in public when you were doing so well writing?
Well, at that point in my life, I felt that writing for TV shows was a dead end, and that it wasn't really too interesting, and I wanted to be a comedian. I was not a flop when I began. That was the problem. I began as a comedian and forsaked my job on the Gary Moore show at that time, and accepted a pittance to go and do my act in this place called the Duplex. And I was petrified. I was scared of getting up in front of audiences, and I was just racked all the time. But the audiences liked me immediately, and for the first 6 or 8 months of performing, I wanted to quit all the time and go back to writing, but my bookings outran me. The problem was that I was accepted by the audience right away, and I found after a month's time that it would be foolish to quit, because I got an offer from the Blue Angel and an offer from another club in the Village, and at that time I didn't take it. I got an offer to play the Playboy chain of nightclubs, and audiences were responding very warmly to me right from the first, but I wasn't having a good time. I was nervous, and it was not enjoyable for me. It was too radical departure from sitting in your room or on a television show writing, and then suddenly finding you're standing up in front of 100, 300 people 2 and 3 times a night and having to get laughs.
Was it the Taniment and the Poconos?
Tamament.
Were those good times writing sketches?
Sure, that was real easy. I was just a kid then. I was 18, 19 years old, and Tamament was a summer theater, and you would go there, and they would have a theatrical staff, and once a week you created a full original show with musical numbers and sketches and monologues, and they had a whole staff of writers and performers. And sure, it was great fun because, you lived out in the country, and they gave you bed and board and a small salary, and you saw your work on stage every single week. I had 2 or 3 sketches that I would write and see on stage every week, and I put in a couple of years at Tamament, and it was an enormous experience in terms of seeing what played and what would make an audience laugh.
We're talking about the late 50s now, when you were still a teenager, and I like the stories that when you were still in high school, you used to mail jokes to columnists, and you said the columnists would give them to celebrities like Guy Lombardo and others, and then suddenly they began to be attributed to you. How did, one day in high school you just decided, who did you send them to? Earl Wilson, Louis Sobel?
Exactly. That's 2. I have to name 2. Walter Winchell.
Did they pay you? Did they send you checks?
No. They didn't pay. They would run them. I just did it as a lark. I was in school, and I was constantly making jokes up, and and I would always see purportedly right remarks in these columns, and so I mailed them in. Someone said, "Why don't you send it in?" And again, as soon as I sent it in, they printed it. And so I did it all the time, and I would send them, a dozen, and they would print one with my name on it, and they would, stick celebrities onto the other ones, various people around town that they were promoting in their columns. And then I got a job doing that. People started paying me to do it, to impute jokes to them. I was getting $25 a week, then $40 a week. And it was nothing. I mean, I used to get out of school at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, get on the subway in Brooklyn, and start writing jokes on the subway, and scratching around on the newspaper. By the time I got to Manhattan, which was 45 minutes away, I'd have 30 jokes or something. Then I'd go into an office and write another 20 jokes. I mean, they just flow out quite effortlessly. And I was doing about 50 of them a day for a few years. And they weren't great jokes, but there was nothing to it. And they would take those jokes and mail them all over town and impute them to various celebrities to get their names in columns.
What do you do now with the material and the jokes that people mail to you? I understand you get a lot of
I get a
material
certain
mailed
amount
to
of
you.
that. Some of the more reliable stuff I try and read. If someone sends me something for criticism, I try and criticize it and send it back. When they send me stuff for myself or to produce, that I don't bother with because I'm not interested in it. But once in a while, someone will send me something and say, "Is this any good?" Or and then I try and scratch out an honest answer.
Speaking of things being submitted to you, did a girl once write to you and ask if you would send her one of your socks?
Probably. It sounds very familiar to me. I get very bizarre requests all the time, in the mail from
Why do you think
fans.
you get them?
I think all celebrities get them. And I think maybe a comedian gets ones that are supposed to be amusing, so you get, I got some very strange Valentine cards this year. I mean, really, really strange ones.
Are you nervous about Easter Sunday?
No, I'm just afraid of getting a letter bomb, that's all. That's what I always think of every time I open something and I see, lipstick mark across it, 2 lips pressed on the envelope and a heart, and it says, to Woody Allen, personal, and everything. And I'm convinced that as soon as I open it, the house will blow up.
How did you get the job writing What's New, Pussycat? How did it come about as your first film project?
I was appearing at the Blue Angel in New York, which was a cabaret, and this producer, Charlie Feldman, came in with Warren Beatty, and they had heard about me, and they thought that I would be a perfect person to create this comedy for Warren Beatty to do. And of course, I was glad to do it, and I did. And then by the time I finished the script, Warren was already off on another picture, so they cast Peter O'Toole in the lead and made the picture. I was, nothing could have shocked me more. That they were serious. I didn't believe them for a second.
Were you going to be in the film from the beginning?
Yes. Mm-hmm. They kept saying to me, "Write yourself a good part." And I wrote myself a real big part. Actually, a part as bigger, as big as Peter O'Toole's part. But they kept cutting it down and down and down all the time.
As a man who has the admiration you have for filmmakers like Bergman and Antonioni and Renoir and Buñuel, I think it's fascinating looking at Annie Hall because you've made what is really an American art film. And I think that it's established from the beginning with your direct speech to the camera. And I'm not doing a comparative study on face-to-face, but I just, there are so many things within it. And I just wondered, I'm nervous about even bringing it up because of the way you treat the intellectualization of film within Annie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a European attitude toward the structure of Annie Hall?
Well, my influences in film, essentially, my influences as a comedian were always people like Groucho Marx and Bob Hope, and but my influences as a filmmaker have always been, as anyone's are, from the films that I like. My own personal films are Buñuel's and Bergman's and people like that. Therefore, what you get when I make a film like Annie Hall is a weird hybrid of very dramatic influences on a funny film. So all the devices of Annie Hall are devices that one generally associates with films of Bergman's or Buñuel's, or, it's not shot like a comedy, it's low lit, and there's long master shots that go on forever, and it's not edited like a comedy, and the devices, the split screen devices and subtitling are things that you don't associate with comedy, but the film itself is a comedy, so you get it becomes an odd kind of experience.
But it's a romantic comedy.
Yes, I want everyone
Isn't
in the
it a
audience
comedy
to
drama?
identify. It's a comedy drama, but mostly comedy. It's a comedy drama in the same sense, hopefully, it's a pretentious comparison, that City Lights is, where you laugh, if I'm successful with the film, all the way through, and then sort of cry at the end, because it's a comedy about real people in sort of a touching situation, as we've all been through when we try to fall in love with someone and it doesn't happen.